So Rashida Tlaib is slamming a quote-unquote bipartisan stimulus effort coming out of the Senate because that effort is an absolute slap in the face to working class people and to the most vulnerable Americans when they need help and support most of all. This package, which seems to be spearheaded by Joe Manchin and Susan Collins, but it includes people like Mark Warner and Mitt Romney, both Republican and Democratic neoliberal ghouls from both sides of the aisle. It does not include a direct stimulus check. It does not include it. There's a lot in here that's needed and good and important, but there's really 3 key elements where this package fails. First, it cuts the weekly unemployment, amount in half. It was $600 a week before. Now it's only $300. People's needs have not been cut in half. People's costs have not been cut in half. Many people cannot return to work. Cases they've never been higher. This is not a time to reduce unemployment benefits. It's a time to, if anything, increase them. At least keep them where they are, if not increase them. And this is absolutely a neoliberal ideological argument that comes from both conservative Democrats and Republicans, that if you give working class people too much money, they're going to be lazy and they're not going to work and they're going to leech off the system. Meanwhile, they'll give trillions, literal trillions, to corporations and millionaires and billionaires. But working class people, they can't have that extra $300 a week because they're getting too damn opulent and lazy on it, and they're living off the public dime. So right off the bat, they're off to a bad start, cutting in half the benefits that a lot of working class people need. In addition to that, they're eliminating the liability shield, they're adding a liability shield, a temporary one for corporations, which would give them the ability to escape all responsibility when it comes to their workers who may get sick on the job from things like COVID. And so it's basically saying we're going to cut your unemployment in half to force some of you back into the workplace early, and we're going to make it so that your bosses, your employers, the companies you work for aren't responsible for your health and safety with regard to this particular crisis. So right off the bat, this bipartisan group is cutting the benefits of workers, and they're making it easier for employers to get away with harming those workers. Then, and this is probably the thing a lot of people are going to focus on, and rightfully so, there is not one single cent devoted to direct stimulus payments. It was woefully inefficient the first time, but everybody got that one-time $1,200 check. There hasn't been another one since, and people need it because the unemployment top-up is good, but it doesn't cover everyone. It doesn't cover the broad range of Americans that have been negatively affected through no fault of their own. And so they need something universal. If it's a monthly check or even just another one-time check, they need something. Get something done. And they're not doing it. It's all cuts for workers, protections for employers, handouts to corporations, and nothing for the most vulnerable people. The people that, through no fault of their own, don't even qualify for unemployment insurance in many cases. And so Rashida Tlaib, as a progressive from Congress who's been fighting for a very working class centric policy, she's fought against this. She said the fact that quote unquote no stimulus checks is on this list shows that the disconnect of the Senate with the people on the ground. There may not be bipartisan support for an additional check, but there is support outside of Congress. 7 out of 10 want direct payments. Recent polling, as per Tlaib, shows 70%, a supermajority of Americans wants direct stimulus checks. That's what they want. That means it has to include Republicans, because even if it was literally every Democrat, let's just say, it's country's 50-50. There's more Democrats than Republicans. But if the country's 50-50, then that means a substantive portion of the Republican Party, a substantive minority of Republican voters, want stimulus checks too. So Republicans have big support. Democrats have huge support. Independents have majority support for a direct stimulus payment. And yet this bipartisan group in the Senate is getting together to screw the working class. It's an absolute travesty. Absolutely. And then you have Joe Manchin with the goddamn gall to go around and saying AOC gets nothing done. She just chirps on Twitter. She's not that important. I don't even know who she is. Well, first of all, AOC is one of the most prolific members of Congress and one of the most influential members of Congress. And even beyond that, I would rather her be a little bit quiet than work with Republicans to put the working class over a goddamn barrel. That's where we're at right now. This is supposedly the new government we're going to get. This is the new post-Trump era. And it's literally pain for the working class and gain for the capitalist class and the exploitative class. Workers will suffer. Workers will starve. Workers will end up homeless. And when they do go to work, they're going to get sick and their bosses will be protected from the consequences. Absolute travesty. People need to fight this. I'm glad there are people like Rashida Tlaib and AOC to fight this. But frankly, as long as the Democratic Party has a significant portion of its Senate base that are effectively economic Republicans, the working class will continue to suffer.